Our next deep dive session is someone you've already met a couple of times today, George Lynch, Director of Advisory, and also Leon Doherty. Oh no, sorry, Leon Doherty. It's Thomas Pointer. I get a bit confused with all our amazing people. Thomas Pointer, Senior Technology Consultant, who are going to tell you about the transformative power of AI Maximalism. Please welcome them up to the stage.
Hi guys, me again. You must be getting pretty fed up listening to me today. I'm such an annoying speaker. Big Chris Weston decided he wasn't coming back up again. He's gone off somewhere, but I've got an equally tall colleague lurking in the shadows, Tom, who's going to come on and give you some real insight. So, the good news is that this is indeed the last time I'll be on the stage, and even better news is that Tom will come on, and he's really the real intelligence behind this particular topic. And this topic's a bit speculative. It's a bit of a now and next. We talked about an SDLC, but it's looking at the wider architecture of your technology stack. And I just want to make it clear, this is a very deliberate continuation of the sessions we had this morning. There's been a lot of recurring themes. What's quite interesting is all the speakers have independently said similar things. We didn't all come into a room and huddle in and make sure we all were consistent on our messaging, which is good. And what's clear is, from the report perspective, I'll reiterate these points, right? Custom software is the differentiation layer. Commercial platforms still matter, and that AI fundamentally changes how both of those types of stacks will be developed and operated. And just to be clear, today isn't a prediction game. This is a decision lens. If you're a CIO, and it's about where you standardize versus how you differentiate. And if you're a SaaS leader in a commercial platform, it's basically how you continue to be relevant in your industries. And if you're neither, well, it's a bit about what your stack will demand of you next. And when I say SaaS, I've used the word SaaS and COTS a lot. That's kind of like throwaway terms. It's really just commercial platforms. And I talk about those multi-SaaS layers, so your ERPs, your CRMs, the foundational systems that we all have in our organizations. And I'll use the word commercial platforms to be more generic. And you think about it, right, SaaS, IaaS, PaaS, that's more of a delivery model, isn't it? Remember there was a NIST paper that defined all this ages ago. And COTS is more of a product model, how you buy it. And as I mentioned earlier, our report identified a shift from what is called a traditional technology stack, and what is a traditional technology stack? Is the thing you bought. It's the thing you built 5 minutes ago becomes traditional, right? To something that's maybe a bit more of a game changer than the AI native technology stack. Now, it's not just about adding AI to the stack, but what we're really talking about here is redefining the whole stack itself, where models, data, and agents become first-class citizens. And we're going to explore a term called AI Maximalism, which is potentially not hype, and certainly not a theory, and could be seen as a natural next step if you accept the findings of the report that you've probably read over lunchtime, I hope, and some of the logical conclusions. And I'll start by framing what I think AI maximalism really is and why incremental adoption starts to break down. So let's go into it. Whoa, big diagram. What's it all about? Just to be clear, you can take a picture or you get the downloads later. I'm not going to go through all this, right? But it's to give you a bit of a sense of now and next. On the left, you'll see a stack we should all recognize, right? It's about most enterprises have built something like this over the last 5 to 10 years. And it's predicated on a couple of concepts. Systems of record at the core, slow things you invest in every 10 to 15 years. Applications on the top where everybody interacts, and integration holding it together. And a kind of a governance layer that's sort of implicit but not explicit. Governance happens, but it's not baked into the architecture. On the right-hand side is a future state which is kind of coming along. If I was going to do George Corp tomorrow, I'd probably build my stack this way. And it's a direction of travel, right? It's how things are going to happen, I think. And it'll make a big difference on architectural decisions, operating models, and delivery constraints. What matters here is not the labels, but what matters is the gravity. And there's a bit of a gravity play here. Here's a practical way to read it. In a traditional stack, applications are the centre of gravity and data supports them. We've met a few data people here today and would have a strong word to say about that. An AI native stack, trusted data and policy are the centre of gravity, and applications become an expression of that. That's why governance can't be after the fact. It becomes part of the runtime, not in a review meeting. In traditional stacks, value somehow lives in the application layer, in the workflow area. In the AI native stack, value starts to concentrate around data you trust, models you control, and the ability to orchestrate work. It's not about running software well. We can do that. And I'm not going to unpack this in any great detail here. This slide is just kind of a reference point, something we'll keep coming back to as we talk about more about AI maximalism. For now, it'd be great if you could just hold a question in your head. If AI stops just being a feature and starts becoming part of the stack itself, on the right-hand side, what does that break on how we currently build, govern, and operate technology? And we'll come back to that. What is AI maximalism and why now? Well, if you're building on the stack we've just looked at, I want you to put a name on the direction of travel without fully unpacking it. AI maximalism isn't about being extreme for the sake of it, right? It's not about your cool devs just building new stacks for the sake of it. And it's not AI everywhere as a slogan, and it's definitely not about ripping and replacing everything overnight. As technologists, we've spent our careers rebuilding legacy and legendary systems, right? This is not about that. This is something much more fundamental. And it's a posture. It's the recognition that once AI becomes reliable enough to reason, act, and orchestrate, it stops being a feature and starts becoming something more structural. In that world, applications matter less than workflows. Screens matter less than decisions. Sorry for all the UI guys out there. And the stack increasingly organizes itself around data, agents, models, and policy, not menus and modules, right? It's not about adding new models and menus. And the reason this matters now is timing, because organizations are hitting a very specific tension. The first wave of AI adoption tended to be, and we've looked at this already today, tooling at the edge, productivity stuff, right? Co-pilots, chat interfaces, point automations. The second wave is about work automation. Systems that take actions, not just generate text. And that's where incremental adoption starts to break, because the moment an agent can act, you need clarity on three things: authority, auditability, and accountability. And we've talked about accountability a lot today. Without that, you don't have acceleration, you just have more risk. The report we launched earlier shows ambition is already here. Adoption is accelerating, but foundations like data, integration, governance, operating models are all kind of straining to cope with this new model. AI maximalism is a point at which incremental adoption stops making sense, not because it's wrong, there's nothing wrong with incremental adoption, but because it becomes internally inconsistent. And I'm not even going to defend that claim yet. The next slides are where we'll explore what breaks, what changes, and what this means in practice. For now, I'd love you guys just to hold one idea. AI maximalism isn't a destination. It's what happens when AI becomes too important to sit on the edge. And I'm enterprise architect, right? So we talk about, we don't talk about dates, we talk about states. You'll know when you get there, right? Not be next Wednesday. You'll just know when you've got there. So, AI maximalism and its strategic importance. I won't turn my back at the audience, that's a cardinal sin. AI maximalism represents a paradigm shift where AI, particularly Gen AI and agentic AI, because remember, AI has been around for a long time, becomes the core of the enterprise technology architecture rather than just an add-on. This concept advocates for embedding AI deeply into every layer of the technology stack, enabling automation, contextual intelligence, and adaptive workflows. So as your business changes, this should change. So unlike incremental AI adoption, maximalism assumes that AI-driven models and agents will orchestrate processes across data, application, and infrastructure layers. If it's not been bad enough for infrastructure guys that the cloud stole their jobs, now AI is going to make them even less relevant, which is terrible in my opinion. Now, the strategic importance lies in the potential to deliver unprecedented agility, scalability, and personalization. Really, that's all business language, right? That's good. And when I say strategic, I mean three things. Speed of change. How quickly can your workflows adapt? Quality of decisions. How well can you use context you already own? And the cost of complexity. How much coordination overhead your stack creates. So AI native approaches can reduce that coordination tax, but only if you treat models, data, and governance as first-class engineering concerns. So a bit of a first-classness about this. And I'm not, I'm a Scotsman, so I'm really against all that class war stuff. However, the AI should be, should arrive at the table. Now, enterprises gain agility by adopting AI-native solutions over generic commercial platforms. And what I really mean is your Dynamics, your SAPs, your Salesforces that had this great dream that you could build on top of them, the PaaS era, right? I think we need to move on from that because differentiation matters, and it means it allows you to reduce your reliance on these horizontal SaaS suites and instead build AI-native solutions tailored to your own data and to your own operating context. This approach also addresses integration challenges, governance requirements, and the growing demand for real-time decision-making. This kind of idea of the tolerance for everything now is zero. There is no tolerance. By positioning AI as the foundation, organizations can future-proof, hate that word, nothing's future-proof, but future-ready, their technology investments and respond dynamically to market disruptions. So let's crack on. Comparing traditional and AI native architectures. So it's kind of obvious, really. Traditional enterprise stacks are structured around infrastructure, data warehouses, integration layers, and monolithic modular macro service, not necessarily microservice architectures. These systems often struggle with agility and contextual intelligence, relying on static workflows and manual interventions. In contrast, AI native architectures introduce things like foundational models, semantic layers, and agent-based orchestration as core components. And Tom and I have talked to this quite a lot. We kind of think that maybe agentic AI is maybe the purest implementation of SOA. Remember that, service-oriented architecture? Might be the best shot of that architectural paradigm. And the new stack prioritizes data governance, contextual retrieval, and dynamic model deployment, supported by things like ML ops and agent ops. Applications evolve into adaptive experiences, powered by autonomous agents, capable of reasoning and executing tasks across domains. This is all about the things that apply to your personal life, could be applied to your tech stack. There is also an operating model shift. Release management becomes a continuous evaluation. Business rules become policy that agents must obey. We talked about how might you get policy into the agents themselves today. And integration stops being connect system A to system B, but becomes connect context safely where decisions are made. That's why ML ops and any X ops you want to think about become core capabilities. Security and AI governance becomes integral, ensuring compliance, ethical standards, and resilience against adversarial attacks. And there's sort of the human element of security in AI, but there's also you can actually use AI to sort of man-mark itself, who watches the watchman concept. This transformation enables enterprises to replace fragmented ecosystems with cohesive, AI-driven platforms that integrate seamlessly with legacy systems while offering superior scalability and personalization. So I say in Nasdaq's perspective, it's really the survey, right? So what we saw here was that enterprises are adopting AI-native solutions for cost efficiency, flexibility, and faster time to market. They're not adapting that AI-native architecture, but they're certainly starting to try. 97% of tech leaders are seeing AI driving custom software shifts, and 70% highlight integration and innovation as benefits. Obviously, governance is a big challenge through delivery, and the embedding of governance for outcomes is becoming increasingly important. It was ever thus, right? And I kind of feel like I've made this kind of speech like a lot over the last 30 years with the latest new thing, but I think, to be honest, I think this might be the game changer. So I'll just wait for this to, because I got way ahead of the teleprompter there. What's going faster? Wow. Yeah. It's really good stuff, actually. I should have said that. There's a cracking joke in here as well. Yeah. Yeah, and I'll just catch up with it, right? Okay, let's move on to this. Enterprise CIO Action Plan. So this is for the CIOs out there. Well, I've got another slide for SaaS CTOs. So enterprise CIOs must transition from isolated AI pilots to fully integrated AI native stacks. Now, they might stop off in a few places along the journey, but that's the end game. The first priority is establishing a robust data foundation, and I've said that for like 100 years, including retrieval augmented generation pipelines, lineage tracking, and privacy safeguards. Practically, this means being ruthless about two things: what data is trusted and who's allowed to use it. Then you build retrieval pipelines that are observable, not just it works, but you can prove why it answered the way it did. And once you observe that, you can govern it, which is the difference between pilots and platforms. Next, you need to define a model strategy encompassing domain-specific language models and implement. I've said ML ops and agent ops a lot, so it must be important because I wrote it about 5 times. And the word governance. So governance frameworks kind of have to be baked into it, and you can use both human governance and you can use governance from the machine. CIOs should also modernize legacy systems using multi-agent workflows for integration and testing, reducing dependency on generic horizontal SaaS solutions we mentioned earlier. And listen, use commercial platforms where boring is good, right? Compliance, finance, HR, core systems of record, but don't try to make them do your system differentiation. And finally, you need to add some new roles, right? AI product owners, data stewards. Data stewards aren't new, right? But we try to make people adopt them. But things like agent reliability engineers to sustain innovation. These steps collectively enable CIOs to deliver measurable business outcomes. But what about the SaaS guys out there and girls out there? Be careful, George. For the SaaS providers, survival, we talked about extinction level events. Survival in an AI maximalist world hinges on evolving from feature-centric platforms to AI-native ecosystems. In other words, your competitive moat shifts from UI features to trusted connectors, governed agents, and composable workflows. If customers can bring context safely, you become the platform they build on, not the license they renegotiate every year. CTOs should prioritize enabling customers to bring their own context through secure data connectors, vector databases, and policy-aware integration. So there's a lot to think about if you're a COTS or SaaS provider. And if you, again, I think I used this term earlier, if it was my chip shop, right, what would I do? I would probably think about at least exploring an AI native architecture if I was an new enterprise client, or I was indeed a new SaaS provider. But with that, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Tom, because really that's about an AI native stack, but Tom is really the brains behind the outfit, and I'm just the puppet, right? The old guy who's been through it all. But I'd like to hand over to Tom, who's going to talk more about a bit of an idea we've had about a sort of a potential future state. Thanks, Tom.
Brilliant. So, thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to have a little bit of fun with you today. So I'm going to talk about a core concept. We're going to rip up the rule book, and we're really going to talk about, well, what if the world ran, the internet, right, and in some ways the world, ran on a mesh of AI agents from different companies and organizations that all work together to better us as humanity. Now, I can't see any guns trained on me, but before, this is not Skynet, guys. We're not talking about general purpose AI. We're not talking about, the singularity overnight. What we're actually talking about is really the technology that we have today. So we're talking about agentic AI. We're talking about large language models. We're talking about small language models and potentially fine-tuning of those in order to achieve our outcomes. But how does it help us as humanity? Well, what I think is that a lot of the content that's available on the internet today is not that accessible. So it might be that it's highly specialized, it's legal documentation, or it might be that actually that we need to convert that to make it more accessible. So rather than being text, we generate a video of the content, but also enhance it, make it explainable, and really allow personalization. And what I mean by personalization is, imagine if the content was all tailored to you. So before we talk about the future, let's really talk about what technology we're running on today. What does this look like today? And now I'm going to say that this is static content. And realistically, what I mean by that is a lot of the content that you will want to access or generated is kind of one shot at a time. So if I'm going to get an insurance quote, I might need to navigate through pages and pages of information. So it might be that I need to enter potentially my information into multiple different websites. in order to get the result, right? To get the information that I want. Now, under the hood, what does that mean? Well, in reality, there are multiple ways we can access the information. So an app, a URL, a search engine. But they're all really using the same technologies here, the same endpoints, which is effectively DNS, which has been running the internet for the last 30 plus years. Now, what I'm talking about, and what I think that is definitely possible, is that we have a client agent. So I have my gateway to the internet, to the world, of my client agent. And this client agent has a store, a knowledge base of information all about me. So it's got all of my information about, previous searches, previous queries. It might even scan my email inbox to get information. It might have information around my payslip, all of the personal information that really makes me me. But also, importantly, my preferences. What do I like? What do I not like? And based on this information can get bundled up with a query to send it to a mesh of remote agents who are self-organizing, and then they themselves can determine effectively how do we best service this query. And what I mean by self-organizing is agents are able to understand each other's capabilities. And there is such a protocol at the moment. It's called A2A. Google effectively open-sourced it, giving it to the Linux Foundation. And there's this idea of A2A discovery using agent cards so that each other agent understands each other's capabilities and can route work to each other. So here is my conceptual design for this. Now, we're omitting quite a lot here because I couldn't fit it all on a slide. But security layer also made it very, very messy. But the one thing that I want you to take away from this is this idea of the query flowing through this stack and then the response flowing back. So we have the client and personalization layer. Now, this is all of the information that makes you, you. This is all of the knowledge about you that's been collected. But this is also all of your personal preferences for how you want the content to come back. We've got our routing and validation layer. Now, this is really, if you like, the planning layer, if you like. So the idea behind the routing and validation layer is that it's able to chain together multiple different agents in order to perform complex tasks. And we'll come back to that in the example. Then we've got the enrichment and conversion layers. These are really where a lot of the heavy lifting takes place. So it might be that you've got different knowledge agents, knowledge workers inside of that. It might be that you can translate between different languages, or that you're actually accessing video content generation capabilities here. And then we've got our final layer, which is the service agent layer, which, again, is kind of the information layer. These are all of the services that you're using today, just agentified. So it might be that you access this by social media. It might be an HMRC agent. Or it might be the way that you access and consume news. But using these layers in combination, you can enrich the different content as it flows through and then back again in order to really give you a tailored result. So I'm going to give you an example here. So here we've got Joel. Now, Joel has spent some time in the UK working, but his English isn't very good. He's a non-native English speaker. And he needs to access content on the HMRC website to understand what he's owed. So that information will be retrieved from the knowledge store. First of all, I omitted, Joel gave his instructions, right, to the interpretation agent in a different language, in Portuguese. Then the personalization agent will go and get all of the information that might be required or could, again, enhance the query. Based on that, it contacts the orchestration agent that lives in the cloud. Effectively, the orchestration agent tries to plan what interactions are needed with different agents. So in this example, it knows it needs to finally get to the HMRC agent. And it knows that because his query is quite basic, the amount of money effectively, how much money is owed, that it might need additional information to be enhanced to that. So it needs a knowledge worker inserted as well. So first of all, translates it into English. How much money do HMRC owe me at the end of the year? And then the tax knowledge agent, based on this translated query, is able to try and work out the different steps that might be needed, or the different questions, if you like, to ask the HMRC agent. So it might check multiple sources of income, it might check different tax codes, etc. Now, based on that information, the HMRC agent can send that information back to it, in which case it can perform those calculations. But more importantly, it can also explain how it's got to that number and why it's important. So it's adding explainability. We can translate it back into Portuguese again. And then the validation agent will then come along and effectively say, does this answer the query? Does this answer the question? Is this the information that's being looked for? And if that passes, it can send the information to the personalization agent that can then perhaps output it in whatever format they want, whether that be a PDF that's emailed to them with large font type, whether they want the full information or they want it to be summarized. But again, the preferences of the user really enable it to tailor it to what they need, how they want to ingest their content. And an important step as well is once the user has read the content, got the information that they're looking for, a personalization feedback loop in order to understand, well, is this actually what they wanted? Is there a way that this could have been done better? And also storing that information in the knowledge store to be used for another time. But as you can see, what is a very short initial query of how much information, how much money am I owed, through a series of agents in conjunction working together with one another, you can get the correct answer back from what might be quite a complex system, because let's face it, nobody understands tax in the UK. So what's preventing us from doing this today? The honest answer is actually not a lot. So the technology foundations are there with regards to the A2A protocol. But I personally don't feel like that might be up for the task when we've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of agents, all trying to communicate with each other. So in my view, there needs to be some type of a DNS, if you like, for agents, some type of a lookup, or some type of an agent directory in order to understand the different capabilities of each one of those agents. And no one's developing these agents, or they're not developing them at a scale where we can really use them in order to query all of this. So for an accountancy firm, for the tax knowledge agent, we need accountancy firms to start training these models using fine-tuning so that they can answer these questions. And this could be an additional revenue stream for them. For the orchestration agent, well, this one's a point of contention. But in my view, the hyperscalers really should be providing this capability to be able to kind of orchestrate, plan, and understand based on the different agents that are available on their platforms. But it also equally could be your ISP. The HMRC agent, well, that's an easy one. We just need that to be agentified. We need that agentic layer over the top of the APIs at the moment that the government might provide with regards to our critical services. And with regards to the personalization agent, well, I think a lot of you would agree that perhaps our lives might be on these devices, whether we like it or not. So in my view, I think probably Apple or Google with Android might actually be really poised in order to have the personalization agent on your phone, but also more importantly, to have that knowledge store that will be encrypted and on a device that's always with you. Thank you so much, everybody, for a couple of our crazy out there ideas. But we hope that you've understood that, again, those building blocks of agents really can be used to enable accessibility. And also, as well, to access services that perhaps might be out of reach for people at the moment. And I'll pass back to George.
Thanks, Tom. So what's really interesting here is that the journey that Tom went through is a journey that's common to a lot of us, and we've tried to do this through different iterations of technology over the last 25, 30 years maybe, but we're probably as close to the dream as we've ever been, right? And making ourselves, all these technologists in the room, redundant because we nailed it. One of the consequences of what Tom, this is great from Thomas, his own thought here is, are the providers of these agents ready? I'm sure the HMRC are not ready for a gajillion agents hitting them and asking them questions, but they probably should, right? Because it will probably help with a lot of contact avoidance and blah, blah, blah. And there are some natural winners in the game in terms of providing the different agent layers. And I think Tom makes an absolutely excellent point on, there's a big revenue stream here for making your knowledge available through an agent. And if you can monetize that, then it's kind of like money for free. So I'd just like to say thanks to everybody for listening to Tom and myself, and hopefully you found this a bit of an interesting session. We're not saying this is the future, but it certainly could be the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So thank you. Just a little note about Phil and Leon were representing delivery excellence, and of course, George and Thomas representing our advisory practice. If you want to learn about any of these things, please contact your Nash Tech representative, whoever invited you, or grab one of the team. We'd love to tell you more. We're now going to have another break, and the other side of the break, after you've topped up your coffees and popped to the loo, we're going to have our most magical session yet. Oh, thank you.